AITA for locking the fridge because my roommate was selling my groceries that my parents gave me. Her parents give her money, but she decided to make money from my products. So here's the deal. I, 22, female, moved into an off-campus apartment about 4 months ago with another girl named Madison, 23, female. We're both university students, and on paper, this seemed like a good setup. We had mutual friends from school, our class schedules didn't overlap too much, and the apartment itself was a decent size, 2 bedrooms, a shared kitchen and bathroom, with a cozy little living room. Pretty standard for student housing. Now, I should mention right off the bat that I come from a lower middle-class background. My parents work really hard, and while they don't have much, they've always done everything they could to support me. They know how tight money can get, especially when you're juggling rent, tuition, books, and everything else that college throws at you. Every now and then, they send me care packages filled with essentials, ramen, snacks, toiletries, and sometimes homemade food. My mom's big on cooking, and she'll freeze trays of enchiladas, lasagna, or tamales and send them with a little note reminding me to eat well and take care of myself. It's comforting, and it helps me survive those weeks when my bank account is screaming. I always label my stuff. I keep everything organized in the kitchen. Anything from my parents is clearly marked, either in my handwriting or because it's in containers they sent. Madison, on the other hand, comes from money. Like, a lot of money. Her parents pay her rent, give her a hefty monthly allowance, and she's always dressed in Lululemon or Alo Yoga, even when she's just lounging around. She DoorDashes dinner almost every night, sometimes twice a day, and she casually drops $20 tips like it's nothing. She's not mean, per se, but there's definitely a vibe that she doesn't really get what it's like to struggle financially. At first, everything was fine. We got along okay. We weren't best friends, but we coexisted. But then I started noticing small things. I'd buy a box of granola bars and 2 would be gone the next day. A brand new tub of yogurt would suddenly be half empty. At first, I honestly thought I was just being forgetful. I told myself I probably ate them and just didn't remember. I didn't want to be paranoid or accuse anyone over a granola bar. But then things got weirder. One night, I went to the freezer looking for a tray of homemade enchiladas my mom had sent the week before. Gone. Completely gone. I knew for a fact I hadn't touched them yet. Another time, I had a sealed bag of imported chocolate-covered almonds my aunt gave me for my birthday. I came home after a long shift at work, dreaming about those almonds, only to find the bag ripped open and most of them gone. That's when I stopped gaslighting myself. Something was definitely going on. But the moment everything came crashing down was completely surreal. I was taking out my trash and bumped into a girl from another apartment down the hall. We chatted for a minute, and then out of nowhere, she mentioned how she had bought one of those cute mason jar parfaits from Madison the other day. I froze. I don't make mason jar parfaits for fun, but I had made a few recently using the ingredients from my last care package: Greek yogurt, berries, granola, even honey from a little farm stand back home. I had made them for myself and kept them in the fridge, sealed with lids. I asked her what the parfait looked like. She described it exactly. Down to the twine my mom wrapped around the jar, to make it cute. I went back to the apartment and confronted Madison. I didn't yell, I didn't go full meltdown. I just asked her if she had been taking my food and, more specifically, if she had been selling it. She didn't even blink. She said, and I quote, "We're roommates. We're supposed to share." Like this was the most natural thing in the world. I couldn't believe it. Sharing is one thing. Offering someone a snack when they're having a rough day is kindness. But taking someone else's food that was sent with love, that I need to survive, and selling it? That's theft. And it's cruel. I told her straight up that it was unacceptable and that it couldn't happen again. I expected at least some kind of apology or maybe denial, but she doubled down. She said I was being dramatic, that it was just food, and that I should relax. She said that since she shares her DoorDash sometimes, it's only fair that I share my stuff too. Except I never asked her for her food. I never touched anything of hers, not even once. So I took action. I bought a mini fridge. It cost me almost an entire week's paycheck, but I figured it was the only way to protect my food. I set it up in my room, added a lock, and moved everything inside, yogurt, meals, even snacks. I left a note on the kitchen fridge explaining that from now on, none of my items would be stored in the shared space. Madison lost her mind. She came storming into my room, furious. She said I was creating a hostile environment and that locking up food was paranoid behavior. She said I was ruining the communal spirit of the apartment and acting like I didn't trust her. I told her, very calmly, that trust had to be earned and she had actively destroyed it. She called me petty, controlling, selfish. After that, things got tense. She stopped speaking to me except to make passive-aggressive comments. She started loudly telling her friends that I was a crazy control freak and obsessed with her food. She even accused me of hoarding because I had stocked up on essentials in my mini fridge and wasn't willing to contribute to the apartment. I tried to ignore it. I stayed out of her way. I kept the peace. But deep down, I was hurt. I felt violated. This wasn't just about yogurt or parfaits. It was about the fact that I live paycheck to paycheck and depend on the support of my family to make it through school. And here's this girl, who has every advantage, exploiting that. Not just taking what I need, but profiting off it. So yeah, now I'm that roommate. The one with the fridge in her room. The one who doesn't share. And honestly, I don't care. Because I'd rather be a little inconvenient than get taken advantage of. But still, sometimes I wonder, was I really the bad guy here? Was locking up my food too extreme? I just couldn't take it anymore. And I can't stop wondering, am I the asshole? Update 1. So I thought that would be the end of it, right? I figured once I moved everything into my room, once I physically removed my groceries from the shared space and put a literal lock on my mini fridge, that would be enough of a boundary even Madison couldn't twist her way around. I genuinely believed that would close the chapter. No more communal spirit nonsense, no more disappearing food, and definitely no more makeshift resale operation out of my homemade snacks. Wrong. 2 nights ago, I came back from a late shift at the campus cafe, totally wiped out, only to walk into my room and instantly feel that something was off. It wasn't anything obvious at first, nothing stolen, nothing trashed, but then I looked at the corner where my mini fridge sat. The lock was twisted. Not broken, but clearly tampered with. The latch was bent halfway open and there were fine little scratches all around the keyhole, the kind that only show up if someone's been prying or poking at it. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just some passive-aggressive tantrum. Someone had actually tried to break into my fridge. I keep a little security camera in my room. It's not for drama, my laptop, my school files, and a few heirloom items from my grandmother are all in there. My room is my safe space, and with Madison already pushing boundaries, I'd installed the camera months ago, long before I ever imagined I'd be using it to catch someone red-handed trying to steal snacks. I pulled up the footage, and there she was. Madison. Wearing gloves. Crouched in front of my fridge with what looked like a butter knife, jiggling the latch and inspecting the lock like she was auditioning for a low-budget heist movie. It wasn't a quick attempt either. She was there for nearly 10 minutes, trying different angles, backing off when she heard a sound, then returning like some kind of food bandit on a mission. At that point, I was equal parts furious and exhausted. It was almost 1 a.m., I was coming off an 8-hour shift, and now I had to process the fact that my own roommate had literally tried to break into my private fridge. I didn't say anything that night. I barely slept. I kept replaying the footage in my head, trying to wrap my mind around how deeply entitled and shameless you have to be to do something like that. The next morning, I confronted her. I didn't yell, I didn't have the energy. I just asked her what the hell she was thinking. And right on cue, the tears started. She said she was desperate, that she hadn't eaten a real meal in 2 days because she'd accidentally spent all her allowance on makeup and skincare. She said she didn't want to bother her parents because they already think she's irresponsible. The kicker. She tried to make it sound like this was somehow my fault, for locking things up, for not helping out, for leaving her with no options. I reminded her, very plainly, that she could have gone to the grocery store. That there's a student food pantry 2 blocks from our apartment. That she has no problem door dashing sushi at midnight when it suits her. That what she did was, point blank, attempted theft. And worse, she did it in my private space, where she had no right to be. I told her I'd be invoicing her for the damages, the bent lock, the replacement latch, the few items she somehow still managed to snag before I got the fridge locked up, including a container of chicken mole my mom had shipped overnight for my birthday. Her response? She actually laughed. Laughed. She said, and I quote, "Good luck getting any money from me." Like it was some kind of joke. That was the moment the sympathy I'd been clinging to finally snapped. I tried to be understanding. I tried to set boundaries without making it into a full-on war. I told myself she was just immature, just thoughtless, just spoiled. But now I saw it clearly, she wasn't clueless. She didn't feel entitled out of ignorance. She felt entitled because she genuinely believed that nothing had consequences for her. That she could do whatever she wanted, and the worst that would happen is someone else would clean up the mess. So I did invoice her. $87. Itemized. For the lock. The replacement latch. And some of the food she still managed to snag before I locked things up. Update 2. After I sent Madison the bill, she simply ignored it. No reply, no acknowledgement, not even a flippant emoji or passive-aggressive comment in the kitchen. She acted like it didn't happen, which, honestly, was the most predictable thing she could have done. It was a very her move, deny, deflect, and hope it all goes away. I wasn't surprised. I didn't expect her to Venmo me or drop a check on the kitchen counter. But I also didn't expect what happened next. It started with a few notifications, harmless at first. I assumed it was just Instagram stuff, maybe some memes from friends or people liking photos of my dog. But then the messages started to shift in tone. They came from people I didn't know, usernames that didn't ring any bells. They weren't trolls exactly, just people who clearly thought they knew something. The first message read, "Why are you making fun of Madison?" Then another, "She said you took all her food." And the one that really threw me, "Do you really keep the fridge in your room so she can't eat anything?" At first, I laughed because of how bizarre it sounded. Then the pit in my stomach formed when I realized this wasn't a one-off. These people were parroting her exact words. Her narrative. Word for word. She had started telling people, online, maybe in class, definitely in group chats, that I was hoarding food, that I was intentionally starving her, that I had some twisted power play going on where I kept all the good stuff locked away to punish her. She painted herself as this poor, struggling student left to beg for scraps while her cruel roommate lounged in luxury with a fridge full of gourmet meals. The audacity would have been funny if it hadn't actually worked. Because people believed her. Strangers believed her. Some were angry. Some were just confused and asking for my side. But all of them had been fed the same version of events, and I hadn't even realized I was in the middle of some twisted public relations war. Then came the screenshot that broke the illusion. One of the girls who had messaged me earlier sent a follow-up with a picture from a private story or group chat, I'm still not sure which. It was a photo of my mini fridge, with a caption that read, "She took all the food. I haven't eaten in 2 days." There was a crying selfie attached, one of those perfectly lit, glossy-tiered photos that look ripped from a soap opera. It was such a stark contrast to the girl I had just seen waltz in the door with a pink drink from Starbucks, balancing a bag of sushi and a package from Amazon. The disconnect made me furious. Not just at the lie itself, but at how easy it had been for her to twist everything. She turned me into a villain without even confronting me. She didn't try to resolve anything or apologize for what she did. She just pivoted the story to make herself the victim and sent it out into the world for sympathy and validation. That was the moment I stopped letting her control the story. I began responding to the messages. Not with sarcasm or emotion, but with pure, calm facts. I explained that not only had she eaten my food without asking on multiple occasions, but she also sold my food, literally resold meals my mom had made for me, to people in our building, like it was her personal Etsy project. I explained that I had set a boundary, moved my food into my room, bought a fridge and a lock with my own money, and that she had tried to break into it. I mentioned that I had video evidence of her trying to pry it open with a butter knife while wearing gloves, like some parody of a burglar. I never accused her of anything beyond what I could prove, and I never insulted her. I just gave people the truth. And it worked. Some people ghosted after hearing it. Others left supportive messages. A few apologized. One guy messaged me and said, "Okay, she didn't tell us that. Now it's clear. I'm sorry we only believed her." Another girl, one of the earlier ones who had believed Madison's crying selfie, sent me another screenshot, this time of a group chat where Madison had written, "This bitch is making me hungry." The girl added, "After you explained it, I don't have any more questions." It was surreal. This whole ordeal had made me feel isolated and small, like I was somehow the one who had to defend myself for protecting what little I had. And now, slowly but surely, the fog was lifting. I still got the occasional message here and there, sometimes a sarcastic comment, sometimes a question disguised as concern, but the tone had changed. People were realizing that things weren't as simple as Madison made them out to be. That the girl who played the victim wasn't so innocent after all. The entire experience was draining. It felt like I was stuck in this emotional crossfire, fighting battles I didn't ask for and navigating a weird form of public shaming orchestrated by someone who just didn't want to own up to what she did. I came to college to learn, to grow, to chase a future my family worked hard to help me reach. Not to defend myself against an orchestrated smear campaign because I dared to lock up my yogurt. And yet, here I was, having to defend my right to personal property like I was standing trial. But what I didn't expect, what really caught me off guard, was how people responded when they had the full story. Not everyone. But enough. Enough to remind me that the world isn't made entirely of enablers and gullible followers. Some people really do care about the truth. Madison still hasn't paid the invoice. She probably never will. She still walks around the apartment like she owns the place, occasionally slamming a door or sighing loudly when I'm in the room. I don't care anymore. I've moved on. Because I didn't need the $87 as much as I needed to be heard. I needed the narrative to be corrected. I needed the truth to be known. And now it is. People have understood the truth. Update 3. And here is the final twist to what felt like a bizarre sitcom that had swallowed my life whole and spit it back out as a Reddit thread. A few days after the storm of DMs, the group chat drama, and the slew of gaslighty Instagram stories, Madison abruptly packed her things. No explanation, no conversation. She wasn't even passive-aggressive about it this time, just cold, silent efficiency. A suitcase. A makeup bag that was worth more than my entire closet. Her laptop. A canvas tote bag full of protein bars. And then she was gone. She told me she was going to her parents' house for a break. I didn't ask how long she'd be gone. I didn't really care. The apartment was blissfully quiet. No doors slamming, no sighing when I walked into a room, no strangers wandering in and out with mason jar parfaits in their hands. I spent the next few days studying in peace, catching up on lectures, cooking for myself without labeling every single container like I was managing a science lab. I honestly thought she'd come back. That she'd let things cool off, put on a face mask, and strut through the door like nothing ever happened. I figured she'd bring a new narrative with her too, something about how she needed space to heal from betrayal, or how some people just don't know how to share. I had mentally prepared for the eye rolls and fake smiles. But then, exactly 1 week later, I received an email. It wasn't from Madison. It was from her father. At first, I thought it was spam. Who gets emails from their roommate's parents? But it was real. Professional. Calm. Respectful. He introduced himself, explained that he had recently been made aware of a situation involving his daughter, and politely asked if I would be willing to share my version of events. He said he had only heard fragments and was hoping to get a clearer understanding. I paused for a long time before responding. I wasn't sure what to say. Part of me didn't want to get involved with her family, but another part, the part still raw from the fact that this girl had defamed me to half the campus, wanted someone in her life to finally know the truth. So I did what I've done this whole time. I told the truth. I wrote a summary of what had happened, as neutrally as I could. I explained that Madison had been taking my food without permission, reselling it to other students, and had even attempted to break into my locked mini fridge after I moved it into my room. I attached screenshots of the messages and the group chat posts that had started surfacing. And, yes, I included the security footage, grainy, time-stamped, undeniable. A girl in gloves with a butter knife, crouched like she was about to audition for a knockoff mission, impossible. That evening, he wrote back. His tone was gracious but firm. He thanked me for the detailed explanation, said he was deeply disappointed in his daughter's behavior, and offered a sincere apology on her behalf. He said she had misrepresented the situation quite severely and assured me that he would personally reimburse me for all the expenses related to the fridge incident. Not only did he transfer the $87 in full, but he also added $50 for the stress and emotional toll and said he hoped it would help with anything I might need to feel secure in my living space again. And honestly, I was stunned. Because in all of this, through the manipulation, the lies, the targeted messages, I hadn't expected accountability. I hadn't expected anyone in her world to say, that was wrong. But her dad did. It didn't erase what she did, but it felt like a small win. Like the truth had finally traveled farther than the story she spun. But the saga wasn't quite finished. A few days later, a post appeared in our university's student Facebook group. Anonymous, but not really. It was a long-winded rant about a toxic roommate who locks up food and blackmails people for money. The words practically vibrated with Madison's energy, self-righteous, theatrical, just vague enough to sound like a call for justice but detailed enough that anyone who knew the situation would recognize it immediately. The post tried to make it sound like I was some kind of food tyrant, guarding my refrigerator like smog hoarded gold, and that I had demanded money from a poor, starving roommate as emotional revenge. The comments section lit up. Some people defended the poster, saying that food should be communal in a shared apartment, that locking it up was extreme. But most weren't buying it. They started asking questions. If the situation was so unfair, why hadn't the starving roommate just bought her own food? Why was she blackmailed for money but had enough cash for new clothes and Uber Eats? And then, as if on cue, one of the girls who had messaged me during the earlier drama dropped a bombshell in the comments. She posted the exact screenshot Madison had sent to their group chat weeks earlier, the one where she admitted, in her own words, that she just wanted to make a little money off someone else's stuff. That same girl added a simple line below it, before you judge, ask why someone felt the need to lock up their own groceries in the first place. It was over after that. Madison never commented. Never tried to defend herself. The post faded into the void, and her defenders disappeared with it. Not long after, word got around that Madison had officially informed housing services she would not be returning to the apartment. She claimed it was because of the toxic atmosphere, but let's be honest, it wasn't the atmosphere. It was the accountability. Her parents had agreed to rent her a solo apartment for the rest of the semester. Somewhere she didn't have to deal with roommates or rules or repercussions. As for me, I still had the lease. Madison's name was on it too, but since she moved out voluntarily and the rent was being handled by her parents, I was free to find a new roommate. I lucked out. A chemistry major named Tara moved in 2 weeks later. Quiet, respectful, sweet. She brought her own food containers and, when I told her the full saga over tea, her eyes got huge and she whispered, "Should I be afraid of the fridge?" I told her not anymore. She laughed, and we've been getting along great since. I never wanted to become the main character in a roommate horror story. I never expected that defending my own groceries would turn into a months-long saga involving social media smear campaigns, private messages, fake crying, and a dramatic parental intervention. But it happened. And it taught me more about people than any lecture or textbook ever could. Because not everyone who looks rich and confident is acting like an adult. Sometimes the ones who scream about injustice are the ones who created the chaos. And sometimes you have to protect your resources not because you're greedy, but because others don't respect even the most basic boundaries.